Welcome to Blender Schnoop Schno Schneeple. All right, welcome to the Blender's Noob Oh, I'm messing it up, Mike. I'm messing it up again. The Blender Noob Show.
Blender Noobs.
Yep. My name is Gabriel. I am the Checkpoint Professor, and this is my buddy.
I am Mike Reese, also known as Melting Face 3D.
Because his 3D will melt your face.
Well,
like the fieriest of metal music.
That is, man, that's where it comes from. I'm a big metalhead, so that's where it comes from.
All right, so big news today. We're back on Twitch. We started on Twitch, not on this channel. This is the first. This is like the breaking the bottle on the stern of the SS Blender Noob Show for Twitch, because this is our first official episode here on the Twitch channel, Twitch network, whatever it is.
Yes, as our new, yes, that is what we're doing as, because we were once before on your own channel. But now we've gone to,
yeah, we kind of broke ground on Checkpoint Professor's channel. A very fine channel if anyone wants to go check it out. By the way, I play a lot of Mario Maker and indie game dev and Unreal Engine type stuff. But here on the Blender Noob Show, if anyone's new to this adventure, we Mike and I are 3D trained individuals who are trying to get into the liberating free Blender movement, trying to learn
yes.
learn the free software, which we're finding is actually incredibly awesome and powerful.
Yeah, it's we've both been on a different journey with Blender, and it's becoming, personally, my software of choice. My background is in 3D Studio Max and V-Ray, and I still love those programs. But um, I've actually heard this from other artists, and there's something about Blender that's more liberating for some reason. With it allows a, I don't know. There's a feeling that I get with Blender that for some reason I don't always get with other programs.
Yeah, it's kind of fresh. It's less corporate. It's there
Yeah.
because it is, and it's there to be used, and it's pretty awesome. So Blender Noob Show, the format here is pretty simple. Mike and I talk about Blender things. We usually kick it off with some Blender news, followed by whatever projects we're working on. And in the meantime, if you're hopping in because you're a Blender artist or a Blender fan, or you have something to share, please speak up in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave your Blender portfolio in the comments below. We'd love to show it off on future episodes. And if you come in here to chat with us, we'd love to show off some of your Blender art live and talk about what you're working on.
Yeah. And if you have any questions or you want some feedback, we are here to help.
All right. So to kick it off, let's start off with some Blender news. Big news is right here, as you can see behind me, Mike. I'm showing off the blender.org website, which, from what I hear, has gotten a little bit of a facelift.
Yeah, it looks a little bit more updated. I mean, it's not huge news, but I mean, they're always making things looking really nice, and it's had a small visual update, and it's very pleasing to the eye.
It is very pleasing. You can see right there, right on the front page, download Blender. It's free. Like big, huge spaceship behind it that's made in Blender. And scroll down a little bit, some of the latest news on there. Mike, why don't you tell us about the Apple movement?
Well, yeah. So pretty much, like, we got Apple, who they joined the development fund, which is, this year has been really big for big companies joining the Apple Development Fund. So like Facebook joined not the Apple Development Fund, the Blender Development Fund. So latest is Apple, which is fantastic. That's more, some more capital so that Blender can continue to push forward into the future. What's crazy is that there's been a lot of companies that you wouldn't have normally seen or thought of to potentially join, like a 3D fund. Facebook, now Apple. but there's a lot of companies who are getting into the 3D space. And just to take a weird tangent, like Facebook, they joined the Blender Development Fund not too long ago, but they're going to go through a facelift of their own. But one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg is trying to do is he's building the metaverse. Gabe, have you heard about the
I have
metaverse?
not. I want to hear about the metaverse.
So, okay, so let's take a little bit of step back. So, how Google, when they started, it was just Google. But Google then acquired companies, and then what they did was they created a parent company called Alphabet.
Alphabet,
So
right?
so now it's Alphabet, and then it's Google, and then with all the other companies and things that they do, like YouTube and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And so currently
Uh,
Facebook is the parent company of Facebook.
yeah, it is Facebook who own like WhatsApp and Instagram, but and Oculus. And so one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg has talked about is the metaverse, and that's more of a like a big 3D realm where people can go and they can talk. And you've kind of actually worked in this kind of industry where it's a 3D world, not too dissimilar from some recent movies and books that we've seen. Where so what Mark is wanting to do is create this community with the metaverse, and so they're putting a lot of resources into 3D content. And so it makes sense that they would want to kind of make sure that people can get into 3D content by going to the Blender Development Fund.
So I just had some thoughts on this too that I just kind of realized this. So you have Adobe, you have Apple, you have a lot of big names that have
Hmm.
contribute into this, right? But
Yep.
none of these own like a 3D development. But what all of these companies do own are companies that use 3D software.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so um so that, I mean, it makes sense that they would put money into 3D software. It's going to save them a lot of money if they don't have to use licenses from Autodesk and different software companies, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if like Amazon and other companies start maybe pumping a little revenue into Blender as well. These companies that are starting up game companies as well.
Yeah. Like if their goal is to have people using their platforms, like Adobe, for example, one of their pieces of software is now Adobe 3D Painter. They're not interested in creating modeling software. They're interested in people using their software.
Right.
And so, trying to put money into Autodesk doesn't make any sense, but getting people, you know, the quickest way for them to get into their own software with the 3D tools is to put money into Blender.
Yep. Yep. Which is been kind of a big name for a long time. So I just clicked on this is the Wall Street Journal. Mark Zuckerberg sets Facebook on long, costly path to metaverse reality, and on the cover, I have no idea what this is about. Facebook and big tobacco, why social
Mm,
media is and isn't like cigarettes. No idea. Anyway, that is the first thing that popped up. So kind of weird. I have no idea. What does that have to do? What do cigarettes have to do with the metaverse? Any idea?
I'm thinking potentially addiction, but I don't know.
Oh, snap. We're hitting some real hard-hitting topics here, Mike.
Yeah. Can you actually scroll up? So like what one interesting that so like the subheading is social media company sees growing market for digital clothes tools in an online world where people inhabit.
Oh,
This
crap.
is something
Okay.
that's so funny because we being in the game company, we've known about this forever, and that's just, you know, going into a mobile app or going into your favorite game and
Yeah.
doing all the purchases that you'd get for new loot and, It's,
So
so
so I'm coughing
yeah,
here, but so one of my very first 3D jobs, right?
yep.
Was
I'm thinking
working
about
for
yep.
Sony Home. This exact same thing. I was making clothes, furniture, potted plants, chairs for people's virtual apartments in Sony Home. So is this metaverse reality that he's planning doing? This is like an expansion of Sony Home then.
Well, yeah, and so really, so this is interesting. So like, um, Facebook has over 1 billion people on its platform. Man, that was a big cup you just had. That was sick. That was a big old cup. Um,
Yeah.
so
I thought you were saying Facebook was a big old cup because I was
no,
like,
no, no. That was a huge, yeah.
you got to
Anyways,
keep you got to keep hydrated, Mike.
yeah, no, that that's the truth. So there's a market out there that Facebook is trying to tap into because typically gamers are the ones that would want, hey, I want, these cool armor or like all these things that game companies like, are used to having all these microtransactions within games where Mark is thinking, well, if we can expand that market to everyone that we currently have on the platform, have their own living room and stuff that where they can meet virtually, then all of a sudden, yeah, not just gamers are the ones who are buying digital clothing. It's everyone who wants to be a part of this world, whether it's on their computer or through their Oculus and experience it virtually. So, he's trying to tap into that market, which is interesting. And I think, like in a sense, I think Apple's kind of doing the same thing. Um, what we'll see of that. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
There it
showing
is.
it off a little bit. So that was Sony Home, which actually it's so in my mind it came out with I believe the PlayStation 3. It
Yep.
came native with the PlayStation 3, which occasionally I still play it and I never look at it, but it actually was pretty ahead of its time, I think. It just
Yeah,
didn't catch
people
on.
were not ready for it. But you know what's interesting is that I think it started with The Sims.
Right.
Like way back in like that game is still super addicting and has tons of massive fan base, and I think it's kind of,
Yeah.
that mentality of your own space, your own home kind of
So
thing is
so
still
I'm
expanding.
I'm very interested to see what they do with it. So even with Sony Home, like I went to GDC one year with the small team that we were developers working on Home. We got to meet with the
Mm.
engineers there, right? Kind of one of those backdoors meetings, and they talked about how with Sony Home, one of the things they would do is they were like, we create these tools to build this virtual environment where basically just gads of people could be in there, interact in different ways. You could organize and present things. You could even start to create like your own situations in there. And they're like, we have no idea what it is. We just want to see what you developers create of us. And he's like, look at this. They show us like one of the developers had created a horror game out of it, and the
Wow.
engineers were like, they're doing things with the cameras that we didn't even realize you could do. And it truly was ahead of its time. It just nobody knew. That's the problem with a lot of software, even Blender probably included. If people don't know how to use it, it's not going to continue to grow and be innovative, no matter how powerful and amazing it is, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where if certain industries have a wall, and a lot of times it's a paywall. You know, phones had a massive paywall, but now everyone has a phone. Like a mobile phone, a smartphone. Like as things become much easier to get to, then more people use it, and then more opportunities open up. So with Blender, that happened really with 2.8 when a lot of like other artists came in because it was a lot more. It was much more user friendly, and then there's tons of hobbyists who are just wanting to 3D print or to do any other thing, when it comes to that stuff, or just model on their own time because it's fun instead of drawing or something.
yeah, Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. So for everybody watching, that was actually a fun little news segment. I think we covered some really fun stuff. We're excited to see what happens next. If you know of any new news topics that are happening or that are worth mentioning on the Blender Noob Show, we try to put out another hard-hitting episode, groundbreaking production every 2 weeks is our goal.
Yeah, that's our goal.
If we get more love, maybe we'll do more. But if you have any news you think is worth sharing, leave a comment below. Please do. This really quick, Mike, is just I found this little Blender portfolios. And so I was like, okay, we should at least show off some Blender art. Look at that Blender. There's a drink. Oh, so this is just a website full of people's Blender art portfolios. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. What's cool about seeing this is you can see how the styles of art are so extremely varied just right off the bat.
Yeah.
You know, with like grease pencil type art with Kair.
Oh, Kair Eels, yeah.
Yep.
And Catherine Defoe right there. I love that low poly style.
Yep, definitely like low poly style. And then you have like the more game art look with in like the center middle there.
Yeah, Javier. Good job, Javier. We salute you. Come hang out with us on the Blender Noob Show. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, and then Russell White, that's, if that's a 3D portrait, then that's amazing. Or if it's even like some photo bashing, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is. Let's click on it. Photography. All right. Oh, they must add some Blender effects into their photography. Yeah, I can see that here.
Cool.
Fascinating stuff.
It's really, really cool. It's, what I love about Blender and its availability, and the tool is so varied, which is, 3D Max is varied, but what Blender has decided to do is try and put a lot of really interesting tool sets, and so it allows people to do things that you wouldn't think to do with a 3D software.
Yep, this is awesome. This one, Nelson, right there, that's beautiful. I love simple, like polygonal art. There's just something aesthetically beautiful. This little isometric shot here.
I am a little bit concerned of how that bed in that loft is being supported.
Well, it has some. Yeah, you're right.
It has no supporting structure, but it is cool nonetheless.
Yeah, kind of. Well, that's a design for like a studio apartment, isn't it? It's got the kitchen below.
Yeah. Oh man, that'd be interesting in terms of like, if we're critiquing it in terms of having a loft over your kitchen, then you're looking at like exhaust in your range hood. That I'm not sure that would work
that's
out.
True. I'm thinking that ladder, if it were incredibly secure, maybe that would help support that end of it.
It would have to be. There would have to be some hidden supports within the
some joists coming out.
Yeah, like from the walls into the flooring. There had to be some rebar going through into some supporting structures. I don't know if that would be actually. This is
once again why a lot of companies like to hire architects as level designers. Because
is that true?
We've had students come through EAE that have backgrounds in architecture. It's funny, some of them want to be environment artists, right? So they want to do modeling, texturing, they want to do the pretty environment stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they'll go apply at a company to be an environment artist, and the company will look at their resume and see that they have like their bachelor's in architecture. And they'll be like, I have someone for you to talk to. And they'll send them over to the level design department. And that the students are always like, they want to offer me a job as a level designer instead of environment art. And I'm like, shut up, just take the job.
Okay, can you? So that's interesting. So what is it more about level design as a, so I guess as space design, right?
Yeah, so really level design is how the avatar or the character moves through a space. And so naturally, if you have somebody who's halfway interested in video games who has an architecture background, they understand how structure, space, and things work out, even from creating plans and making things that just work, right? So it actually is a hugely beneficial like background to have. So yeah, I notice like their eyes just kind of twinkle. I do know, like in the past, even some environment artists who do have an architectural background, and the same thing goes. They understand how things are put together, so
Yeah.
they are appreciated in that field as well. But maybe if your environment art isn't just pristine and sparkling, they're like, we'll move you over to somewhere where you're working more on the bones instead of the flesh of the game, right?
Oh, that's interesting. That's really
So
cool.
yeah,
That's
fascinating
yeah.
stuff. All right, let's keep this truck rolling. This is fun. I'm having a great time. So now is that fun part of the episode where we show off our projects, which I am not ready for prime time at the moment, but I hear you have some cool stuff to show off.
Yeah. Just we're all noobs here, and so I'm gonna share my screen. I'm
Okay.
doing I finished. So what I like to do is currently I'm working on a farmhouse. If people who are into Blender, you may recognize this farmhouse. It's a part of like a tutorial package. But there are some cool things that I've learned, or at least I kind of want to impart onto some newer artists. And the first thing is when you're going through a tutorial and maybe you have some experience, one of the things that I like to do and I think people should do is, you know, try not it, it's so difficult to not just rely on the tutorial to kind of show you everything. It's kind of like using GPS. Like for like the first time that all of a sudden you only want to use GPS. Sometimes you should just try and remember how to do something and then just try it by yourself, right? So that's a little tutorial thing. But one of the things that um, I think newer artists, newer 3D modelers, newer just 3D artists should know is that what one of the things that um, I thought when I first started 3D, like is that like all the meshes had to be one, meaning had to extruded all into one mesh. And sometimes when I'm going through this like this this tutorial, um, it was strange where the tip is you don't have to have everything as one mesh. You can have it as multiple meshes, and I think a good rule of thumb is that like if it's a different material or if it's think about kind of like what you're
Yeah.
saying earlier how things are put together. Think about what's separate and then
Yep.
what's together.
It's easier to
Um,
have them as separate meshes, right? Because then
yeah,
you have one material associated with it, and it just makes
exactly.
sense. Yeah.
Totally. So I'm gonna kind of go through some things, but like this roof structure, this is one, you know, this is one mesh, whereas in a tutorial they may have, decided to do one extruded mesh with the base, and that didn't make sense to me. But the other thing too is that, these structures are just put in there. I didn't need to take the time to kind of cut these in because um, when it comes to actual roof building, these are separate structures, right? So when you're building things, feel free to kind of shove some things in there, um, build things that or separate the models from that have different materials and that conform differently. Um, just kind of do that. Plus, it will make your life easier. It will make doing some like unwrapping easier. It kind of compartmentalizes models, so definitely do that.
And that's using it's a built-in occlusion rendering, right? Where you can see that it's darker towards the edges.
Oh,
That's
actually,
not, is that part of the texture? Or is that
that's both. So currently, I'm working with Eevee,
okay?
um, which does have some built-in occlusion rendering. But one of the things that I did like extra that was not part of this is that there is a ambient occlusion node within Blender, which is pretty cool. Let's go to the shading. Um, so if you're a Max user, or actually if you're a V-Ray user, then this is like a V-Ray dirt node. Essentially, is what Blender has built in, which is pretty cool. And there's some other things um, that I've seen that are very similar to V-Ray. But there's an ambient there's a cool node called the ambient occlusion node. You can see the samples here and the distance here, and so you have a couple of options. Like you have like the inside only local, and what that means is like if you have a cylinder and then you have a plane. Um, those two pieces will interact if you don't put like any of these on it. So like you'll um, uh, the occlusion will happen from the ground up to the cylinder. But if you only want to be local objects, then you know like type in like then you check inside or only local. But then then I have like have a color ramp to actually like ramp up this fade. Um, and then this is a mix node, which then goes into the other um, textures. So that's pretty cool. So yes, Gabe, there is a built-in like visual ambient occlusion that you can turn on right here, right? So that when you do some rendering, but this is now part of the texture as well.
That's awesome.
So that's cool. The other thing, let's go back to some texture work, but let's say that you have a texture that, this is some pretty simple geometry, and I do have multiple textures, right? I have this brick, I have two materials on here. I have this brick, m- and then I have this planked wood, and some really, really simple geometry. Which, again, this is fine. I could have split this up. But this was simple enough where I definitely just wanted to have multiple materials. You can see it here. I had the brick plaster and the vertical planks, but just a really quick, easy way to. So when I click on this mesh, that then brings me up with what two textures are on that mesh. So that's cool. But let's say for some reason I wanted to change um, or select like all the faces or vertices that um, that this was associated with. One of the things you do, there we go. So let's look at that real quick again. If you look over here, once you go to edit mode, then you get assign, select, and deselect, which is pretty cool. So if I wanted to select everything that had the brick plaster, I would go into edit mode and then I would make sure that's selected and hit select. And
Hmm.
that, this is pretty standard stuff in 3D, but
Yeah.
these are the quick and easy things that sometimes people forget and they start to select things like individually, which is
Right.
not what you want to do. And the other thing too is that if you want to assign multiple textures to a singular object, then you do need to go into your face mode and hit assign or select, not or select, but hit assign with a different material. So definitely that's good. See that that's looks bad, but that's what you can do. Um, so when it comes to selection, one of the things that's not built into Blender, which I maybe it will be in 3.0, and that is selection sets. So if you there's scene selections, which you can hide things and then turn on certain scenes, and some things are hidden, some things are not. But that's not always that's different. So like if you wanted to, let's just go to my modeling tab. One of the things that sometimes can get really tedious is selecting objects, and especially if you have a lot of objects in a scene, you want to make things pretty easy to select quickly. And so there's two ways to go about doing that. There's making sure that your file structure is set up right. So if I want to get all the buildings, you can do that. But sometimes you have multiple things within a collection that is you just want all the bolts, because maybe your collection's metal, but then you have like 100 bolts. There's a really nice, quick, free add-on called SJT. Sorry, it's called, yeah, that's the short name, but it's called SJ Selection Set List. And it's really cool. And what you can do with it is create a new selection set and then you can add things to it. So, like, I have these wood frame pieces. See this right here? So, these are all the wood frame pieces that I have within the scene that I've decided that I would like to quickly um, select so that I can isolate them. The roof, the windows. See, one of the things I need to do, because I just actually made this window right here, is I do need to add like these windows to the selection set, to this, yeah. So you can do that, and then you go to add, right? Add objects. Okay, there we go. So now if I go to selection, now I got those in there. So now if I really just want to isolate the windows, boom, easy peasy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So one of the tips I would give newer artists is figure out things that you do often. And if you think to yourself, man, I do this, I click so many times. I wish there was something that could do this. That probably exists, like like a selection set, um, which is pretty cool. The other thing that I've been playing with is called Bagapie, right? Yeah,
Bag
Bagapie.
bag of
Yeah,
pie.
Bagapie. So Maya, has pie menus.
Yeah,
These things right here. Um, this is a pie menu. So what this is a bag of pie menus. Is kind of what that means. So Bag of Pie is also free, and it's you know I may go into this in more depth on a different episode, but what it does, let's actually let's do. I'm going to save it. Let's do it just a new scene. So one of the things that is pretty cool with Bag of Pie is that it can do. Um, let's do some quick arrays. So this is pretty cool. So one of the things you can do is you can do some arrays, you can manage things, you can do some architecture things, booleans, curves, scattering. So just some really easy some things that typically take a lot of clicks. You can do you can do pretty fast, like a circle array. So now we go down to here. All right, so I've done a circle array on a cube. So let's go with the radius. Oh, sweet. Nice. Rotation. So now we're thinking, okay, this is some really cool stuff. Random positions. So what's really cool about
hmm.
these things is that you can quickly make some interesting shapes, some interesting particles, like all with just this circle array. And
And that's what
tip,
that little menu is, the circle array.
yeah,
I
yep,
mean, is that the bag of pie stuff or is that just
yes.
default? Okay.
Yeah, this is a bag of pie. So there's some, back end stuff going on. So what it does use is it creates nodes. It creates geometry nodes for all this stuff to make it really easy. So you can see here that we had the original cube that I
hmm
used, but then now it has called the bag array cube,
Yeah.
and that's my new um you know so it has, let's see here. See, it has its own built-in like modifiers, so it does a whole bunch of stuff like on the back end, but it makes doing some things pretty fast and easy, and it can be um, stacked.
Whoa.
So I just did a circle array on my circle array,
That is wild.
so you can really do some interesting things.
Yeah, you can build out
Randomness,
some noise really fast.
yes. Um, so there's one really cool feature, especially when you're talking about like doing some, you know, if you have a client that wants some really interesting geometry and you don't want to place things randomly, there's a lot of use for this kind of things. The other thing that you can let's just delete everything, do a new cube. Um, Now Blender comes with a pretty good like Boolean system, which is a built-in add-on that you have to like initialize, but there's some pretty cool things that you can do with Bagapie really, really fast. If you want to do some quick concepting out. Nice. So then space, nope. Q. Oh yeah, object mode. So there we go. Quick doing stuff there. Go back to J. Let's go to union. So now we're now these are actually unions. Yeah. So and you can see here that you can this is non-destructive, so you can
Yeah.
go ahead and but this is just with the cube. You can think you can yeah there's tons of stuff that you can do that's uh, more than just cut out cubes and other cubes. So um, you can just draw directly on like objects with like other Boolean objects. But it's pretty cool stuff. It makes life easier. One of the things that I would say people should think about are the quality of life tools that would make things faster. Because sometimes there are things that are really cool and they still take a long time to use, but they're cool. And then there are some things that you can use that things that you already know how to do the long way that makes things shorter so that you do them the fast way. And those are like the quality of life tools that you want to be
Yeah.
thinking about.
So this bag of pie, is that like where do you find that?
It's Blender add-on, and you can find it on Gumroad. But you can also go to blenderartist.org and just type in bag of pie modifier for
Oh,
the
okay.
add-on. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've been kind of playing with and utilizing and thinking about while doing this current project.
Well, that
Got
is
tons of things. Yeah, sorry.
yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
intense. So did you learn about that from this tutorial project you're doing, or is this just something you stumbled upon?
Stumbled upon. Yeah, I mean, one of the really cool things about Blender is that, there's just tons of add-ons that people are like reviewing and that can just be found and used. And then one of the things that it's kind of like a tutorial is that you I would suggest people when you're getting into Blender add-ons, there's a tons of great stuff and how to use them. Sometimes what you'll want to do is get decent at doing things the long way, or at least the traditional way,
Right.
because what you can run into when you find add-ons is like with this bag of pie, there are things that I can see me utilizing pretty quickly, but one of the downfalls of all these add-ons is kind of like the same thing that you'd get with like a tutorial. You can just go down this road of just getting add-ons and add-ons, but not incorporating them into your
Yep.
workflow. That's really the crux of it, is that when you find something that you think you can really utilize, then make sure that you practice with it, do things with it so that you can actually incorporate it into your workflow to make it to then speed up your workflow
Yep.
by that amount of
Yeah,
time.
I think we've talked about it in past episodes, but that's one of the drawbacks to tutorials is typically they're followed to the T. So they teach you how to follow directions, not necessarily solve problems.
Right.
So they're both important, but if you like, that's one of my problems when I'm learning something new. Like some of the like this some of the video game tutorials and stuff, you have to at least you typically you follow them step by step the first time and then figure out how to break it. So like if you missed a step like purposefully, it doesn't cause a ripple effect and you have no idea how to fix or repair something. So it's all about solving problems, not just knowing how to do a specific thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's awesome. That's awesome, Mike. What's the next step on your barn project? So that is a like a lengthy tutorial you're doing, right?
Yep. And I'm doing that just to make sure it's really one of the things that I'm doing with this long tutorial is just kind of making sure I touch all the bases of Blender so
Yeah,
that then I can start putting things together. One of the things I also still need to learn is sculpting, and I've been doing like a little bit of that. But I'm still going through the environment project and making sure that I understand a lot of the major tools that Blender has and incorporating those into my mindset, into my workflow, so that I can do more projects like the Game Boy project where that was, completely something that I wanted to do. But some of the next big things I have going on are environment level projects that I want to be thinking about. And so
that's awesome.
um yeah, it's just a way for me to again understand Blender's tool set and kind of make sure that I am incorporating it into my mind and into my mind brain, as people will say.
The
And
mind brain. Do people
yeah,
say that, mind brain?
yeah, yeah,
I'll start saying that.
yeah, I love it. But to incorporate that into the way that I work, so that then I can more quickly express my art through whatever I'm doing.
Well, that is that. Well, I'm excited, and I'm for future updates too. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but I've been making some design changes to the little mini game I'm working on, and I'm
Hmm.
excited to finally jump into that. I found myself in the engine a lot, but not doing. I'm not to the point where I'm incorporating any Blender yet, so I haven't had to go outside of Unreal to
Hmm.
create any assets right now because Unreal Engine allows you to create simple static meshes and a lot of the stuff you're showing, like Booleans and stuff like that within Engine. So it's kind of faster just to prototype within there at the moment. But I'm hoping to start getting some. I need to do some character modeling. There's some props modeling I want to do. I
Cool.
really want to get like this simple little vertical slice going to as a proof of concept before I go kind of hog wild on some of my design ideas.
Perfect.
So
I
so
can't wait
that's
for it.
yeah. So let's unscreen share. There we go. There's the beautiful mic face.
That's
Pop my mug up.
that's me.
There we go.
Get
There we
my
go. And we'll get the Noobs banner
There
up
we
because
go.
it looks so pristine.
Get my fill
And
light.
yeah. So this has been another successful episode of the Blender Noob Show. We'll have some links below to some of the items, like whenever we share something like Bag of Pie or
Hmm.
pie bag. What was it called again?
Bag of pie.
Bag of
Bag
pie.
of pie.
So
So yeah.
so it's free. It's an add-on. You get this big bag with a whole bunch of pie,
Yep.
and the
Yep.
pie is delicious.
It's crazy. The pie menus are delicious.
Yep. So that's awesome. Everybody, thanks for watching. Follow us on Twitter. Look for updates on Twitch and YouTube. Links in the down below in the description. And we'll see you next time on the Blender. We need to find a catchphrase.
Keep on noobin. That's so stupid. We'll find yeah. Give us some suggestions in the comments,
Yeah,
everyone.
what should be our catchphrase? It's got to be a good one for Blender.
Yep.
All right, everybody, have an awesome day.